Hi everyone, welcome back. So as I mentioned yesterday, yesterday we saw we looked at the Spring Pet Clinic MVC version of it. So let's take a look at the just the backend, the REST API version of it. Okay. So if you go to Spring Pet Clinic GitHub.io, so you can go to list of forks. Okay, and here you will see all the versions of it as we know already. So we will take a look at this Spring Pet Clinic REST, which is just the backend REST API. Okay. So once you go here, so yeah, as usual, so if you follow all my videos, you can just either you clone it or you can download the zip and unzip it and then open the IntelliJ. Okay. So I already opened, I already downloaded and unzipped and then opened it. Okay. So if you look at here, so this is the very similar structure. So which is matching to the PowerPoint which we were looking at it. So we will go through one more time that PowerPoint. But anyway, this is also a Spring Pet Clinic uh, Spring Boot application. So only the thing is you need to do is let me stop it. So for the first time, so you need to click this particular generate source and update folders. So this will generate the some of the DTOs, which is it is using some plugins, which we no need to look into the in detail. But for now, you just click on once and then it will generate all the videos. So once that is completed, you can click the start button to run the Spring Boot application. Okay, let's go ahead and then start it. Okay. So So this is starting. Yeah. So once let's see. So coming up. So while it is coming up, we can see the port number and all. It is coming at 9966 with the Spring context. Let's see, it's the web context as. Let's see, where is that? Uh, to, this is actuator. Yeah. So with the context path, Tomcat started on port 9966. Pet clinic. Okay, so you should be able to access the application right at the port 996. Let's try. I think I was already accessing it, but still we can close that. Localhost 9966/pet clinic. Yeah. Okay. So it is directly redirecting to Swagger UI. So this is about the Swagger UI, which I was talking about it. So this is a simple Swagger UI documentation, so where you can play around with all your tests with your APIs, whatever you have coded, implemented. Okay. So example, so all pet related controllers APIs are available here. So if you look at here, most of the all the verbs, right? Get, put, delete, and post, all these are a specific implementation type. Okay. Uh, so under the pet, so let's say if you want to get a specific pet with a pet ID, so you can use this one. Or if you want to get all the list of pets, here it is, API/pets. Okay, let's try this one first. So this one does not accepting any parameters. You can just click on try it out and then click on execute. So once it reserves the pets, it is going to list all the pets from the database. Okay. Um, so this is how you will just play around with all your APIs. Uh, let's say, for example, so what do we have the pet ID, for example, let's say. So the pet ID is 6, for example. Okay, so if I want to get the specific pet ID, so you will just, so here it takes the one pet ID. So let's try it out. So the pet ID is, for example, if I want to just the sixth one with ID 6, so you see got the ID 6, so which is, oops, sorry, not that one, probably where is it? This is pet ID. Is it one? Okay. Looks like pets ID 6. Oh yeah. So this George, I think pet owner, I believe. So pet ID is 6. Owner ID is 5. Looks like. And what is that? It's owned by George. Birth date and then okay the type and all. Okay. So there is a response. So similarly, you can test all your um, REST APIs. Okay. So now let's look at the structure and the code. Um, so yeah, this is a little bit of clearly neatly structured compared to Spring MVC. So all our controllers are in the REST, I believe. So yeah, it's all controllers, pet controller, owners controller, everything is here. And similarly, we have the layered architecture. Controllers will call the services. Yeah, all the services are here. Clinic service. Um, yeah, clinic service implementation. I think there are two services implemented, clinic service and the user service. Yeah. So let's see what is there in the clinic service. So you see all the related to the veterinarians, and then all the related to the pets. So pets and vets all related with they implemented in the is defined and implemented in the clinic service. And so user service is just the like admin users, and so I think just simple for admin users, I think so, for authentication. Okay. So that is fine. So we don't have much user here. So the main service is just this clinic service. Yeah. So and it has a clinic service implementation. Cool. So clinic service, and so these services would call, obviously technically these services would call our repositories. So let's see what are the pet repository, visit repository, vet repository, so owner repository, so all those things. Yeah, let's take a look at where is the repositories. Okay, mapper node. Yeah, so these are all repository area. Okay, so in this repository we have three different types of implementation: was JDBC, JPA, and Spring Data. Okay, so there are three versions there. So we'll go through that. So all these are like interfaces implementation interfaces, and these are all implemented by this specific to the specific implementation. Okay, based on the technologies which we saw JDBC, we started using JDBC, we started JPA, and then finally we saw the Spring Data JPA also. Okay, so this structure is clearly neatly implemented. Service controllers sorry, okay, REST controllers, services, calls repository, and then of course, so these models are there. So pet model, vet, visit, owners, yeah, owner. So all these are POJOs. Each will map to a specific tables. Yeah. So these are all we all see in the in our courses, right? So we know all these about tables, columns, all these mappings. Cool. Um, so what else? So yeah, so as we mentioned, I think we saw these mappers. So for now, you don't need to worry. So if it is one-to-one, directly you don't need to do anything. If it is anything specific, you need to convert those domain objects into a DTOs, which go back to the REST responses. Okay. For now, we don't need to worry about all those looking into this. But if you have time, you can go through it, look into all those details. Okay. So let's look at the controller one. One controller I will show quickly. Controller pet rest controller. Yeah, pet type. Okay, let's see. This is what we saw it. List pet types, which is internally, yeah. So this there are some authorizations are there, so you can ignore for now. So this one is not taking any. Yeah, this is a controller. Yes, of course. This is a REST controller. Yeah. The REST controllers list pet types, which is calling the service. Again, find all pet types because we wanted to retrieve all the things. If we go here, pet types, yeah. So this is again the interface, client service. So of course, client service will have the pet all pet types. You can go to the implementations. So again, it's called the pet type repository. So all the repositories are defined at the top. Yeah, all these are injected. So this find all pet types calling the pet type repository. So we know it. So if we go here again, so this is an interface. So this find all. So what are the implementations of it? So if you see, there are three types of implementations. One is JDBC pet type repository implementation, JDBC pet and JPA, and Spring Data pet type. So let's take a look at quickly JDBC pet type repository. So if I go here, So we saw these three folders. Now it is one is JDBC pet store. So if you want to find by ID or find all, where is it find all? Okay. Let's see, find all. Where is that? Okay. Find, oops, sorry, Control Z, delete. What happened to now? Okay. So here, if you see the find all, so you have to execute the queries. Template query, I mean, so you have to execute the JDBC queries. You have to write your own query. You have to retrieve it. Once you retrieve the result set, so you have to map into, you have to collect into a pet type. Okay. So this bean property row mapper. So this is using those mapper classes. Okay. So these are the topics I was trying to generate those classes anyway. So so like that, if it is JDBC, so you have to write your own code implementation. That's what yesterday we saw it. And this one, so this is what we were talking about it. Yeah, so we can go to Spring Boot Learning, blah. So we saw this MVC yesterday in the previous video. So core springs, yeah. So data access, yeah. So visit repository. Okay, this is visit repository. We were looking at the pet repository, but it is the concept is same. So each repository interface will be implemented by the three different versions of it: JDBC, JPA, and Spring Data. So we know that if it is JDBC, you have to write your own code technically. So for example, save, so you have to write, delete, you have to write all these things. You look at how much code it is, okay? Things are depending on the logic anyway. Uh, so even for JPA visit repository, so it will be the code will be shortened. For example, let's take a look at this is JDBC. Let's look at the JPA pet type repository implementation and look at the find all. See, so even there, so of course the number of lines of code is little less, but still you have to write your own SQL query and things like that. If it is Spring Data JPA, so if it is Spring Data JPA, you don't need to write any code for the simple methods like find by ID, delete, save, some of those straightforward which are acting on the directly on the poachers. Okay, simple types. But if it is a complex, of course, you have to write a little bit of coding here and there, depending on the business logic what it is doing. But in most of the cases, you don't need to. Out of the box, the Spring JPA, Spring Data JPA will provide all those implementations. Let's look at this JPA pet type repository implementation here. So find by ID. So there is nothing find. Oh, sorry, this is a JPA. Spring Data JPA. We have to look into Spring Data JPA, Spring Data Pet type repository. Okay, so Spring Data Pet type repository implementation here. So if you see here, there is no methods. So we have to see only one delete method, but we need to find the find all. So if we go to here, there are no pet type repository override. So let's look at the implementations here. So if you see Spring Data Pet type repository implementation again here. Okay, so coming back here, okay, wait a second. So going here to implementation, Spring Data Pet type repository. Okay, let's go here. Let's take a look at what is this interface is doing. So yeah, if you look at here, so the profile, of course, based on the profile, this is going to be based on the profile, which is going to be used JDBC, JPR, Spring Data JPA. We'll take a look at it. But for now, let's look at the interface. This is a Spring Data Pet type repository, so which is extending just simply the repository. If you remember our classes, repository pet type integer. Okay, so this is simply extending the repository which is coming from the Spring Framework data repository. If you go look at here, Spring data repository, Spring Framework data repository. Yeah, so these are all being implementation. There are 20 implementations. I think one of those particular Spring repository interface will have those all the defined methods, find all, find by, and all those things. Yeah. So if you remember going back to our classes, Hibernate Spring with JPA, we saw that setup. Yeah, okay. So if you guys remember students repository, yeah. So see, look at that JPA repository with the students. Same thing we saw in our previous examples during our course. JPA repository, yeah. So those are the things. But yeah, here it is a repository. I think there might be they might have renamed it in this new version. Yeah, let me see two implementations. Do we have anything? JPA repository. Yeah, JPA repository is here. So this is one of the implementation. If you see here, see all these methods, yeah. Delete item, so get by ID, find all, so find all, see, these are the things, okay, cool. So this is extending those, these are all like extending and implementations of it, okay, extensions of this JPA repositories, okay, cool. So that's all, but anyway, so this is JPA repository or the repository, cool, Spring Data JPA, okay, cool. So technically what the bottom line, so you don't need to write any codes, so it automatically implements, it's provided by your implementations basically, okay, cool. So this is our main, so basically this is our interface. Spring Data type repository is extending all the Spring framework related uh, JPA repository or repository interface, which provides all the default implementations. Okay, cool. So what else? Okay, let me close all this. So yeah, so that's the code structure. You guys can go through over of it. You can take a look at it. So let's take a look at all the dependencies. I know we would have gone through. Yeah, so dependencies. Yeah, so these are all very simple, straightforward. So which we already know, but these are full-blown application kind of. They try to implement all the technologies in one. So actuator is like to monitor the Spring Boot applications. So AOP is like another concept, so which we don't need to worry. So they use cache to start a data JPA, which we know. JDBC we know, which is already. Spring Starter Web, probably not sure why they need it, but yeah, they might have using some of these classes implementations from the web package. So they have implemented some security and all those things. Okay, so we are using database, HSQL database. So they have MySQL support, Postgres, and all those things. Okay, so all in bundled in one single application. Okay. Um, so yeah, you don't need to worry about all these. That's okay, you can ignore. So that is the form.xml. And what else? Okay, so let's look at the, yeah, so based on the we saw different implementations. If we go here, Spring Data, which we saw right now earlier. Okay, so these are the profile, right? Profile is Spring Data JPA. So by default, I think it is using some JDBC. I'm not sure which profile it is using. We'll take a look at it. So if you look at these, so profiles are defined for depending on the implementation, which one you want to use. Either you want to use JDBC or you want to use the JPA and all those things. Okay, so based on the profile, it can execute, which can take the specific type. Okay, so yeah, so look at this. So JDBC, if it is active profile, so if it is JDBC, it will go to JDBC. If it is yeah, default is JPA looks like. Okay, so JDBC, Spring Data, and so where do you change? I think you will change it in here if you want to switch the implementation from the JPA to something else. We know that resources, application properties. Uh, so let me see the profile. Yeah, profiles. Yeah, so for profile, so it is using Spring Data JPA here in this guy. I think yesterday I changed it, but anyway. So either it can be JPA or JDBC, either JPA or you can use JDBC or whatever. Okay. So for now, the default one is Spring Data JPA, and also database is H2. If you want to change it to MySQL, you can use this one, MySQL, and but if you need to enable these, but if you have to change the profile stack to MySQL instead of H2, okay, MySQL or HSKDB or whatnot. Postgres, sorry, Postgres, okay, or HSKDB also is fine, H2, okay, so database is H2, what else, yeah, no, good, okay. So right now the default security enable is actually is actually false. Is actually a false, but I think I enabled it as a true. Um, so it's technically it's supposed to accept the basic authentication should have been enabled. So maybe it was caching in my it might be caching. So let me see if I can refresh it. I'll clear the cache and all. That's okay. So you guys can try it out. Okay, enable enabling the security or disabling the security. Okay. Uh, so what else? So here is a database file, so HTML. So one thing, one question, I mean, one challenge here. If I want to see the database using the HSQL database, which we know we can access it, but for some reason I could not find. See, of course, these are alternate queries being executed. Pet clinic, pet clinic, pet clinic. Okay, let's look at the HSQL Drive. Okay, so HT console is available at HT console. So with this database, and what was the port number? The default port number. Okay, yeah. So technically, it should available. It should be available at 9966. Yeah, 9966. Which internally is because it's in-memory database. Is it not in-memory database? Supposed to be an in-memory database, I believe. Let's see. Spend. Okay. So the one challenge is if I want to access localhost 9966. So H2 database, H2 hyphen console. Okay. So for some reason I'm not able to access HTTP status 404. It says not found, even though is the application is up and running, even though it is supposed to be available HT console. Um, yeah, added connection. So JDBC, report, line pet clinic, HTTP. Yeah. So for some reason I was not able to access it. Maybe you guys can try and see if you guys can resolve it with this REST API pet Spring Boot application, with this REST API Spring Boot application. If you guys can um, find out to access to resolve this issue to console. I don't know what is the issue. If you guys can figure it out, please let me know. Please comment in the below the video section. Okay, so please comment it. Okay. Um, what else? Yeah, I think that's pretty much. So take a look at it and let me know. Please comment it if you have any questions. If you don't understand any part of it, I'll be happy to explain further. Okay, cool. Thank you.